Hello, I'm Brian Fox, your host here at I Hate Rock Music, and today I'm going to do a video about an astonishing supergroup that nearly happened. And I only found out about it because I was looking at a roster for the New York Pop Fest in Randall's Island, July 18th, 1970, and incredible lineup at that show. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and included 10 Years After, Robbie Schenker, Richie Havens, Delaney and Bonnie, Grand Funk, Jimi Hendrix, Steppenwolf, Jethro Tull, Joe Cocker, Dr. John, Mountain, Van Morrison, and the Voices of East Harlem. But listed in that same lineup was supposedly the Tony Williams Lifetime with Miles Davis and Eric Clapton. And I was completely shocked. And of course, I immediately did research and found out that the group never really happened. The promoter put it on there because there was talk of it happening, and both Miles Davis and Eric Clapton were at the show, but the band never actually played together. But there's a lot of intriguing evidence. Of course, there's the roster for the show that lists them, and then there's a really interesting article um, about the band too. I'll see if I can post that below. But of course, the lineup for 1970 would have been Tony Williams on drums, Larry Young on keyboards, John McLaughlin on guitar, and by that point, Jack Bruce had joined the band as well. So we have those four giants, and then add Eric Clapton and Miles Davis. And in the article, it talks about the fact that they speculated it would have been a great combination with John McLaughlin's jagged, choppy jazz riffs, and then Clapton playing his blues with a lot longer lines. And it would have been a good combination. I agree with that. It would have been very interesting. And of course, a lot of these guys had some commonalities before in the Graham Bond organization in the late 60s that included Jack Bruce and some some other guys. I can't remember who was in the lineup. But there's some interesting quotes that I was able to dig up that kind of talked about the possibility of this happening. One was Eric Clapton saying, "quote I don't understand what Miles is doing, but I don't suppose it matters too much," unquote. And that he said that he'd long found it difficult to get into jazz heads. But that said, he got intrigued when he heard Bitches Brew, and I don't blame him. I'm not sure if he'd listened to the Tony Williams Lifetime previous to that, but there's a good chance he would have listened to them with John McLaughlin involved. And Jack Bruce had talked about putting together a band like this because he thought Miles Davis would get a lot more exposure in the pop world if he did something like this. And then Miles Davis is quoted as saying, "quote I think I can put together a better rock and roll band than even Jimi Hendrix," unquote. So Miles Davis was considering doing something a little more rock oriented, and of course his electric work shows his interest in rock and his transformation of exposing himself to Jimi Hendrix and the like. So it does seem that the possibility of those guys talking about playing together really exists. And I have one other quote from Eric Clapton. He said, "quote I'd like to have a go at playing with Miles Davis. It would be an incredible challenge. I don't think I'm quite good enough," unquote. And so that might be one reason why it didn't happen. Eric Clapton was somewhat intimidated by playing with a bunch of jazz guys. And of course, we found out Jimi Hendrix ended up playing with Tony Williams and Jack Bruce and John McLaughlin and Larry Young. And there was talk about him working with Miles Davis. But as I pointed out in other videos, as great as Jimi Hendrix was, he wasn't really a jazz guitar player. And I think if he'd lived a couple more years, he would have found his way into the jazz circles and would have been able to keep up with him. Because there's tapes out there with him playing with the likes of Tony Williams and Dave Holland, and it wasn't really a good combination. Jimmy's was more of a blues player, and really didn't seem to be that comfortable in the jazz realm. But we do have the Jimi Hendrix album 9 to the Universe that includes jams with Larry Young. And it has a really nice loose feel with it. And when I listened to that, I could see some affinity between Hendrix jamming with those guys and some of the stuff Miles Davis ended up doing. And in fact, when I listened to the electric stuff that Miles Davis ended up doing in the early '70s, a lot of it was slightly more rock oriented, and he used guitar players like John McLaughlin and Sonny Sharrock and Pete Cozy and the like, and a lot of them were really influenced by Jimi Hendrix. And I can hear Jimi Hendrix playing on some of that stuff. It would have been kind of a challenge for him, and he wasn't that adept at using a lot of space. And of course, playing jazz, playing with Miles Davis, he would have had to adapt to um, not only complex rhythms, but allowing some breathing room and allowing some space. But I still found this shocking to find out about this, and it's really too bad it never happened. I think it would have been really great. So let me run down that lineup again because it still just blows my mind that this could have happened. Tony Williams, Larry Young, John McLaughlin, Jack Bruce, the Tony Williams lifetime with Eric Clapton and Miles Davis sitting in. And of course, in that context, they would have had two guitar players, a keyboard player, and a trumpet player. So a great combination of instruments as well. And of course, Miles Davis coming in as the only person playing horns. Um, I think it would have been a great fit for him, and he would have had a lot of room to play. So there you have it. Unfortunately, I don't have any music to post. Hopefully, I'll be able to post this article below. And there you have it. What an astonishing lineup. And once again, when I saw that roster and saw that this particular band uh, posted as playing at the Randall's Island Fest, it just completely blew my mind. And it's really a shame it didn't happen. But anyway, this is the channel where I like to talk about things like that. I talk about a lot of bands that surely existed, but I love these mythical, astonishing, legendary combinations that could have happened. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.